Holland. He's a fellow artist of mine, and fellow artist of mine. That doesn't make sense. He's a fellow artist. He doesn't belong to me. That's crazy. But he's here to talk to you guys about the process that in which he uses to make these incredible creatures that you're about to see. And I hope he also talks to you about Dragon Con, which Eric knows all about and Connor knows all about, because their father is involved in Dragon Con. I hope you learned from him today. I hope you're inspired to go home and create your own creations and your own monsters, and I hope you do something spectacular with what he's going to teach us today. I need everyone to stay quiet, and I'm sure he's going to take questions maybe in the end, and listen and be respectful, okay? If you have to use the restroom, the same rules apply. You have to calmly get up and get the pass. Let us know, take a bathroom buddy out, and go to the back with your bathroom buddy. Maybe we won't do bathroom buddies during the presentation. We'll just take you back there. Later on today, we're going to walk to a restaurant. I need good behavior while Mr. Brian is here. I need good behavior while we're at that restaurant. Let's put our hands together, put the spoon down, clap your hands for our good friend Brian.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian, and this is my son Wyatt. He's going to assist me today. So what I wanted to share with you is how I make these little dragon head statuettes. So I go to these conventions like Mr. Bird had talked about, like Dragon Con, where I have a table with all of my art set up, and I try and get people to buy my stuff and get them excited about the things that I really like, which is weird fantasy monsters and creatures that roll around in the back of my imagination. So when I create something like that, I don't want it to just be, when it's something small, I don't want to just make one and that's it. So what I did was I sculpted the original piece here. I sculpted this, and then from here, I got silicone to make a silicone mold, which I'm not going to show you the mold making process today because that takes a little too long. But I basically I laid this down in a box, and I filled it up with liquid silicone, which over a couple of hours hardened up to get this piece. And in here are all the details. You can see how it fits directly inside. And once that was done, I sprayed it with this coating so it wouldn't stick, and I poured the top half. Now that we have this mold, I can use this stuff called Smooth On, which is a liquid plastic. It's 2 parts plastic, it's a part A and part B. And when the liquids come together, they get really hot, and in about 10 minutes, they solidify to something like this. And it's just got a white base. So today, Wyatt's going to help me, and we are going to put this together. We're going to mix up the liquid plastic. You're going to see it get mixed together. We'll pour it inside, wait about 10 minutes, and then pop it apart. Now, it's very important when you're working with chemicals to always wear gloves. All right, you want to put these on?
So, Mr. Brian, is this really how they make toys? Sort of.
Sort of. On a bigger level where they would have multiple, like if you were making toys, you would have a lot of these molds all together. Millions. So you're making more than one at a time.
But perhaps the toy designer, this is how he makes the first one for the company to see if they like it or not when they're testing the toys out.
A lot of times you would do something like this for prototyping, or even now a lot of people are using 3D printers for prototyping.
Oh.
Now I prefer the black gloves because it makes me look tougher.
Yep. Do you have a 3D printer?
I do not.
We'll have to get you it.
I would have to learn the software. So with this mold, you don't want to just let it hold together like this because it'll kind of come apart and the liquid will come out the side or out the bottom. So what I do is I pinch it together, and right now I'm just using some plexiglass on both sides, and I'll be using some clamps to tighten it together. Can I hand me another one?
So the plexiglass is there to keep the clamps from going through the mold?
Yes, so because the mold itself is a little bit, the silicone's not rigid. It's got to be a little bit pliable so you can bend it away.
How long can one mold last?
If you take care of it, so it depends on the type of silicone you use, but this kind, I should be able to get 100 pours out of it.
Wow. And it'll start to crack up after that?
Little pieces start to tear away as you're pulling the piece out. A lot of it depends on how intricate the sculpture is and how there's little divots here. Like when I pour it, I'm going to have to rock the mold a little bit so that the liquid's coming down, and when it comes into this horn and these little spikes here, I need to kind of rock the mold to make sure the liquid goes up into the divots in the mold.
That's awesome. So I want to make sure everyone understands that he's really dealing with positives and negatives.
Yes.
That mold is negative. There's negative space on the inside of that mold. And when he pours those agents in there, those two things that he's going to mix together to form that plastic, when he pours it in there, it's going to create positive from the negative agents on the inside. You understand that, everybody?
Mm-hmm. And once I'm done, once we pull this out, I'll take the mold around so you can see the details on the inside, or have you come up and look at it there. Now, when you're mixing these two chemicals, the best thing about them is that you mix them equally. So, as you can see, I have an A and a B. And here it says part A. Go ahead and put this over here. And it says part B. And when you mix them equally, you don't really have to do too much measuring. So what I'm going to do, I also got sticks, and I'll label these popsicle sticks. One's A, one's B, and then we're going to pour them into this cup once I know I have equal parts. And Wyatt will then stir them together.
Does Wyatt always help you that way?
A lot of times, yes.
Is he interested in this as well? Do you think he might take the throne someday?
Wyatt, do you think you'd want to make your own sculpture someday? And do your own casting? Maybe.
There's no telling what he's going to do with what you teach him. That's great. So with the silicone, can you reuse that silicone, or is there a chemical change that occurs that won't allow you to reuse it?
No, it's done.
Okay.
It's set up. And the silicone is not cheap, but if you can get 100 pours out of it.
Yeah, it's a good value.
That's pretty close. They don't have to be exact, but the closer they are, the more precise they will be for the actual cure time. So now that we have A and B, Wyatt, will you pour A into this cup for me? Pour it over the plastic and pour it into this cup.
So do you guys believe this is going to work? Do you believe that that's going to turn into plastic? Those two liquids? You do? Let's see. I don't believe it.
The chemicals roll.
I don't believe it. Hands up if you don't believe it. Hands up if you do believe it. Why do you believe it?
Chemical
Because he
reactions.
says.
I don't believe.
We're gonna believe. I won't be a believer until after I see.
After you stir it
Here we
up
go.
for me. Okay. Go ahead and stir it. Now, this should set in about 10 minutes. So while we're stirring it, it'll already start to get hot because the chemical reaction will really start to come together. So we want to try and work fairly quickly, especially knowing that I'm going to have to pour it in this tiny hole here, just as big as my finger, and then kind of rock it around and move it around inside the mold. So let me give it another stir, Wyatt.
Brian, is that figure, is it hollow or is it solid?
It's solid.
Oh, it's solid. Wow.
If you were going to do it hollow, you'd have to do what's called rotocasting.
Yeah.
And I'll explain that once I pour this in a little bit. And sometimes I'll tilt it a little bit.
Is that the same figure you're making in front of you right there?
Yes.
Wow, that's enough to do him?
I don't know exactly because it's been a little while since I poured one. We might have to mix a little more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're going to have to mix some more. But okay, but that's why we keep the A and the B separate, so that we can reuse these cups and it doesn't solidify inside of there. So it looks like I'm about halfway up.
And the reason you don't want those popsicle sticks to touch each other or to go into the other cup is because it might start to solidify, right?
Right.
Do y'all understand that? You don't want those two things to touch. Yeah. Solidify, they ask what the solidify means. It gets solid, or to go from a liquid to a solid, solidify.
So the easiest way to kind of think about it, it's like when you put an ice cube tray in the freezer and the water freezes and turns to ice. So these two chemicals are going to mix together, and instead of turning to ice, they're going to turn into solid plastic.
I don't believe it.
No.
I believe it.
It's like a popsicle.
He's already
It is a
explained
magic trick.
chemical reaction.
You want to pour this in? The magic of science.
If you haven't been in 5th grade yet, you're gonna learn about this in 5th grade.
Hey, we're going to fifth grade.
Watch, guys.
I'm gonna spray this in just to get any extra. I'm gonna do letter B. Now they also make dyes that you can mix into this, like green and red and blue, that if you wanted to, you wanna stir this up for me? If you wanted to have it be a solid color as opposed to white when it's done, you could do that. But I always spray paint mine and then paint on top of it with acrylic anyway, so. You get a little on your finger?
Underpainting a black on, is that what you do?
Yes.
I always see that on Facebook. I think he's doing an underpainting of black.
I do an underpainting of black because that gets all the nooks and crannies
Yep.
and gets the shadows real well and makes it faster for me to paint the pieces afterwards.
And y'all, about underpainting, that's just the first coat of paint that he puts onto his sculptures. Underpainting is a very, very good practice. Saves you a lot of time. See, I'm moving.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not dropping. Can I take it around while he
Yeah.
sits?
Let everybody take a look at it.
I can't let you hold it, but I can let you take a good look. Like that, please.
Yeah, I do just a little bit more. This cup wasn't quite big enough, but that's one of the nice things about this is that you can do it in batches.
I have a question. Do you just make the heads or do you make both?
Well,
The head and
I've done a couple of full body sculptures, but when I do those, I generally do one singular sculpture and I don't make a mold of it. So like I've done some bigger pieces that are only one of a kind. Like I've done a couple of full body rabbits that I could show you some pictures of, but they're like larger than rabbits, almost like this big. Yeah, I haven't done any full body like, actually I've done some toys that I cast that were kind of like He-Man toys from the 1980s.
Well, see, we made some snakes up there. So I saw the cat.
Awesome.
We made some snakes.
Very cool.
Y'all know Miss Elise is a sculptor, so she's all into this. Mr. Brian, this is not the original. This is a cast, right?
Right. It's
like
not the
making
original. The original's over here.
It's like making a copy. Y'all understand that? He's making a copy instead of using
All
a copy
these
machine.
shells that come out of it.
This is the original.
That's the original.
What is he made of?
It's used. I found a base at a hobby store, and I sculpted on top of that with Magic Sculpt. It's a 2-part epoxy that you mix together and it air dries, but it's water soluble. If anybody ever uses it, wear gloves. But it's kind of like I started playing around with Super Sculpey, and then I moved on to this because it's a.
I want to know more about this because I use Super Sculpey and I use Sculpey, like that little TV right there made from Sculpey. But I like the idea of Super Sculpey because Sculpey has to be baked in the oven.
Right.
We used Sculpey here with kids before this summer.
Yep.
It's the original.
Yep. So that air dries. It's water soluble, so you can spray it with a water bottle and use
Wow,
it.
really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So how long does it take? What is this called now? Super
Magic Sculpt.
Magic Sculpt. How long does that take to dry?
It usually after about an hour or two, it starts getting to the point where I don't really want to work with it anymore. And after about 4 or 5 hours, it's solid. Then overnight, like a 24-hour period, you can start sanding it down if you wanted to.
And I want to make sure they understand what original means. Original means this is the first one that he ever made, or the actual one that he made. This is the one that he touched and made.
Yep.
The other one is a copy of the original. Now she can come on in. I'm expecting her. There's the original. He said he bought this from the base. This is the base. He bought that from the store. I like the rust, the corrosion on the base. That's my favorite. You know I love corrosion.
It is.
Hello, Mrs. Robinson.
Hello, Mr. Byrne.
Good
How
to
are
see
you?
Is
Well,
that the only one or was there more?
Of that,
Yeah.
there's just that one original. And I've sculpted other pieces and then made molds. And so I'll keep making additional pieces. But this, like, I'm taking, tomorrow morning I'm leaving for a convention in Indiana, and I'm taking 10 of these small dragon heads with me, and then I'm also doing 5 big sculptures and a bunch of prints and smaller paintings and stuff as well.
this is so neat.
So now we can just sit back and relax and wait for this to set up. It's going to be a few minutes. Here there was some inside this cup, and you can see where it's already starting to turn solid. See how it's getting like a milky white color? If you touch it under here, you can feel the heat. It's getting really hot. And that's the chemical reaction. Is it right on the bottom there? Yeah. So, yep. Just do it for just a second. Yes? It really depends.
Yo, let's go back down.
It really depends on the size of the piece. I think the overall time of sculpting this one only took me a couple hours, but that's because it's a smaller piece. Like on a larger scale, it definitely takes multiple sculpting sessions. Did everybody see inside?
Go back
Yeah.
to seat now. Come on.
No?
Go back to
See inside?
seat now.
So it's turning. Well, that's not the bottom of the cup. That's about, you hold it up to the light, you can see where it's that high up off the cup. So it's just solid plastic.
How about you?
What's that? No, it doesn't get quite hot enough to melt the cup.
Yeah, if it does look like plastic, it will make a few almost toxic.
It could be, yeah. So that's done, and then we're just gonna wait for this to harden up, and then I'll pop it open and share it with you.